So we're getting into my favorite topic, actually using your points. So say I'm a business owner, I've earned all these points. What should I keep in mind when I'm thinking about redeeming my points?
Yeah, look, redeeming is the side of the equation that a lot of frequent flyers forget about. And look, as a business owner, you don't just look at the revenue, right? You don't look at how many sales you're going to bring in and then forget what cost that's going to be, or vice versa. You don't cut costs so much that you have no product left, right? And same with the frequent flyer. You've got to think not just how you earn your points, but how you redeem them as well. So looking at things such as monetary value, is the redemption like practical? Can you actually do it? These are the types of things you need to think about.
In one hand, I've got a flight redemption option. On the other hand, I've got a non-flight redemption option. Which one's more valuable?
In an earlier module, I talked about a general rule that nearly has always applied since frequent flyer programs existed, and that is that the flight redemption is going to be the more valuable, at least on paper it is, right? But you've got to tailor the reward to your needs as well. I've got a friend, for example, she hates flying. So I'm going to have a hard time trying to convince her that the flight redemption is the more valuable for her. But most people do travel. And if that's the case, on paper, the flight redemption is usually going to be more valuable than a non-flight redemption.
Yeah, but I guess you make a great point, though. It is what is important to you. And, flying isn't important to everyone, and there's still great reward value that you can get in non-flight redemptions.
Yeah, that's right. And even if you just look at flight redemptions, for example, I like my business class where I can get it. And so for me, that premium redemption is very valuable. And on paper, the maths works out that way too. But for some people, they'd rather take their family of 4 to Disneyland. And if they've only got enough points to do it in economy, that's much more valuable than them just, going to Hayman Island or something because they're in business class. So, it's different for everyone.
Yeah, and they can get, and in that example, they're more likely to be able to get it on the dates that they need it on, considering you're taking kids out of school as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And of course, you can always go back to flexible rewards programs that we've been talking about for quite a bit.
So one of the best redemptions I feel I've ever got was a first class flight to Singapore. Does that stack in your head?
Yeah, definitely. And it aligns with that formula I mentioned in an earlier module, and that is flight rewards are going to be better value than non-flight rewards. And usually the longer you're flying, the more premium class you're flying. So first class is pretty good, as good as it gets. I mean, there is some a bit better, but as good as it gets, you're going to get the best bang for your buck there. Compare that to non-flight rewards, things like toasters and merchandise like that. It can be almost a tenth sometimes the value of that first class flight.
Yeah, so a first class flight, 10x more valuable than a toaster when it comes to rewards.
Yeah, pretty much, yes.
Life isn't always about the flight itself.
Yep.
There's lots of other ways you can use your rewards. When does a non-flight redemption make sense?
Oh, there are a number of examples where a non-flight redemption could make sense. I wish I was one of these people, but those that have huge points balances, where they realistically can't use all their points just for travel, or they'll be, setting up tent in a plane, then, you're going to have to use them for non-flight rewards. So that's an easy one. But look, there are some people that I like to call frequent buyers, usually more than frequent flyers. They prefer to earn their points on the ground. They prefer to redeem their points on the ground. And I know a few people like that, and I won't convince them that using your points for travel is the way to go. So that's another good example. And then there are other times where you're not just wanting a flight. You may be wanting, in terms of your travel, a more comprehensive package, so accommodation and activities and things like that. So you may want to use your points for that type of travel redemption rather than a flight redemption specifically.
What are the different types of flight rewards?
Yeah, look, that's a very good question, because sometimes I get a lot of disgruntled customers going, I looked at a reward for Sydney to Los Angeles and it's saying it's 1.2 million points. And that's because they're looking at a different type of reward to what we're accustomed to seeing or wanting to see. So, for example, if you take Qantas, they've got 3 types of rewards. They've got what's known as a classic flight redemption, a classic plus flight redemption, or a points plus pay option. Starting with points plus pay, that's the easiest one. That's pretty much the cost of a seat, but in points. So that's where you can get, especially if it's like a one-way business to LA, really, 7-figure costs, right? And that's because they're simply changing the cash figure into points. But then you've got Classic and Classic Plus. Classic is what everyone's wanting to get. That's where you pay the least number of points. The catch with that is that it's usually less available in terms of the number of reward seats issued. Last year, Qantas introduced, in 2024, Qantas introduced the Classic Plus option, and that was a great middle ground between Points Plus Play and Classic in that it costs a bit more a lot of the time, but there's more seats made available to Qantas frequent flyers. And but the thing with that is that they're linked to the cash price. So you can sometimes, if there's a sale fare on, you can actually get a really good deal on Classic Plus as well. So that's the three types of rewards with Qantas. Now, in terms of Velocity, let's say, and KrisFlyer, they've got similar types of rewards as well, and we go through those in the modules.
Yeah, I think the general rule that I try and tell people when someone corners me at a barbecue asking me about points is that it's helping them identify the difference between that Points Plus Pay price they're seeing, whatever flavor that is, whatever airline you're looking at, and the Classic Award, or again, whatever flavor that is, the actual award chart seating. Yeah. Because that's often where the confusion lies and where there's a misconception that flights cost millions of points when they should be costing tens of thousands of points, which is there's a big multiple difference there. So look out for Classic Rewards or whatever that happens to be called, the airline you're looking at. Yeah. That is often where you want to be looking first.
Yeah, and look, again, with the slight variations between the airlines, but I like to see it as just a little spectrum. You've got the Classic here in terms of Qantas, Points Plus Pay, and then you've got Classic Plus sort of deviating in the middle somewhere, and sometimes even less than Classic if there's a big sale fare on. So I like to visualize it like that.
Yeah.
And again, it works the same for other airlines.
Aim for that side where you can.
Yeah, where you can.
Yeah.
But the trick is finding that reward redemption, and then we've gone through in previous modules ways you can really maximize your chances there.
Great. Often when I'm at a barbecue, people ask me the question, should I redeem a flight? Should I be looking for that? Or does it make sense for me to pay for cash and upgrade that flight?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot, and it's a reasonable question to ask because upgrading is an option that you can use with your frequent flyer points. Look, if you asked me that 10, 15, 20 years ago, I would have said the answer's simple, always upgrade. And look, the answer is simple today as well, but the answer is just the opposite, and you're better off with an outright redemption. The reason the answers change is because over time, the price differential needed between an upgrade and an outright redemption has gotten closer and closer and closer. Pretty much the number of points you needed for an upgrade has gone up and up and up, so it's much closer to the outright redemption. That by the time you pay for the ticket and then upgrade, it's going to generally cost you more than if you just got an outright redemption in business or first or whatever class you're after.
Yeah, so the real goal is get that redemption if you can.
Yeah, definitely. Look, there are times where it might be better to upgrade if, for example, an employer is paying for your ticket, your economy ticket, and then you just want a more comfortable work ride. That's fine. Upgrade, obviously, because that's your only option anyway. But most of the time, it's the outright redemption.
So I've got a trip coming up. What's the best time for me to start looking at booking reward seats?
Look, I always suggest get in as early as you can. Having said that, in the past, generally pre-COVID times, if you got in early, like 330 days, 365 days, whatever it is based on your airline, you're going to have the greatest chance of finding that premium reward seat. Not so much of an issue with economy, but definitely on the premium seats, yes. Since COVID, that sort of formula's changed a bit, and a lot of airlines are beginning to release much closer to date of departure, which can be problematic for planners who like to have everything sorted 9 months in advance. But yeah, that formula's sort of changed, and it's nowhere near as guaranteed as it used to be. Where if you got in straight away, 330 days or whatever it is, you'd find the seat. But look, always get in early because they may release the seat early and there you go, you've got it.
Yeah, so get in early and then look, there's an opportunity for you to almost be on your toes a bit over the course of leading up to when you need to travel.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on things because, to your point, there are seats that are getting dropped probably more commonly these days from what we've seen since COVID during the course of the year.
Yeah, but it's a positive step as well for frequent flyers because in the old way, if you got in early, great. But if you didn't, they then hardly ever release reward seats after that. Whereas now, you don't need to ever give up.
Yep.
Because there could be seats coming out.
You've got a fighting chance.
Yeah. You do. You've got a fighting chance. Absolutely.
Continuing on the theme of redemption, like we're going to dive into some tips and tricks. So I think a lot of people are going to be really interested in this next section.
Yeah, definitely. There's no guarantees in this, but you can definitely increase the probabilities such that it's getting close to that.
I want you to open up your bag of tricks and start bringing them out and showing them.
Yes, and take any that you want.
Plan to take the whole bag.
Yeah.